no limit, like the smoke dancing in the wind. Not caught or bound by anything, moving freely in the stillness of peace. I wish a man's estate of unimpeded ease. I wish a man's estate of unimpeded ease, like the smoke dancing in the wind, not caught or bound by anything. One, moving freely. I wish our minds the state of unimpeded ease. I wish our minds the state of unimpeded ease. What?
Like the smoke dancing in the wind.
Like the smoke dance. Y'all hold up. Like the smoke dancing in the wind. Not caught or bound by anything. Moving freely. I wish our minds the state of unimpeded ease. I wish our minds the state of unimpeded ease.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's good. I apologize. Usually when I write a song, I write it and then I never play it again. So I have to really work on practicing and but thank you.
And yeah, you got any song that we've ever done, you got to keep it in your arsenal because
You never know.
I never
You
know.
never know when Venerable might need a song.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's to be able to do a Maureen.
Yeah, I know. Maureen's good at it. She can just pick up anywhere.
Yeah, but she's
Got more years.
yeah, she's got a few more years.
She does.
So, joy is our strength. It's not that we are not touched by the infirmities and the vicissitudes of life, but we have joy and fearlessness that allows us to surmount them. Today, I wanted to finish for once last week's talk on the 5 fears of beginning Bodhisattvas. So you could say that would be Bodhisattvas in the causal stage, dry wisdom Bodhisattvas, and I'd say maybe, I don't know, maybe up until the maybe 8th or 9th level of Bodhisattvas that, but at least the beginning ones, we have these fears. it's not that one day you have fear and you penetrate to the truth of something, and now all of your fear is gone. Maybe 75% of it is gone. Maybe 50% of it's gone. Maybe just 20% of it's gone, or 80% of it's gone. But it's gradually it begins to dissipate. The fear gets uprooted, and what allows the fear to move far from us is our cultivation. And cultivation, after a while, no matter what you say, you will say it is and it isn't. It's just a place you get to when the closer you move to the truth. You can see there is no fixed truth. I wrote a song for Buddha Master about 5 years ago. Was it close? 4 years ago. Said the Dharma stays the same. And I meant something specific about it. I thought he didn't get me, but he did get me. And I was just saying, something like, ask the waves when they come crashing in your life if you're okay. And they'll say no, and and then ask the wind. I can't remember the words to the song now, but the point I was trying to make was that when did the Dharma lose its power? When did it ever fail? Never has, never will. The Dharma stays the same. And he said, you're going to rewrite that song in 2 years. And you're going to change those words. And over those years, he's been teaching that there is, we should not think of a fixed Dharma forever settled out here. That halfway through our understanding, we know that truth depends on a lot of things. It depends on circumstances. It depends on who's involved. It depends on karmic conditions, what's maturing. It depends on timing, because right now we're locked into space and time due to false appearances. And so all of these things determine truth. And it depends on the capacity of the hearer or the witnesser. It depends on the skill and the attainment of the deliverer. It depends on so many factors. And that's one side of it. But now that we've been studying for a few years, and we're really catching a glimpse of the emptiness behind everything, I understand it in even a more profound way. So things that when we have a non-differentiating mind, we're not fixed or settled on any one view, then we can abide in a certain kind of equanimity, a kind of emptiness that can accommodate from both extremes of something, whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, up or down, in or out, because they are relative to each other, but actually, if I'm on this side, I might see that as an extreme. If I'm over here, I think that's the extreme. And so if we can get to the place that we can not, when I say not have a dog in the fight, I mean that we won't fight. We won't fight for our view to be right, and we won't feel entitled to rights. It doesn't mean that you don't do whatever you can do with whatever understanding you have, to do the right thing. But ultimately, right can't exist without a notion of wrong. And so we pick sides, and we're on some spectrum of these two extremes about everything. That's part of what non-duality is. But a bodhisattva has a different kind of mind because their vision extends further due to the light of prajna revealing the true nature of things. And when we can see that far, we are not contaminated by nearness. What's near us? Right now, everything is about nearness. Those who are near and dear to us are more important than those who are far. Where I live is more important than what's going on to people in another country. There is this thing of nearness that we are very dear to. But a bodhisattva has no such notion of this one is closer to me than that one. No such notion of this one should be, but that one shouldn't. No such notion that anybody is unredeemable. No such notion that anybody is that good. And so this kind of impartial mind allows them to be available to the cry of every sentient being. This world, other worlds. It says that when a Buddha enters into his bliss body, he passes through the gate to everywhere. The gate to everywhere. And so as bodhisattvas move or progress in their attainment and skillfulness, they can be more and more utilized. So there was a time that I felt my best way of being of use was in service. So I did all kinds of service, going to India and building wells and toilets. And they asked me to come there to teach Dharma. When I went over there to teach Dharma, I said, y'all don't need Dharma right now. Y'all need toilets and you need wells, because I saw the plight of the people. It was no point in going over there, not with a missionary mind to convert them to, a religion. And it wasn't time to talk about Dharma with them. I mean, you can't really talk about Dharma when you're making $1 a day, when you can't even go to the wells in each village or each town and drop a bucket and get water because you're considered untouchable. And if you go with your bucket, you pollute the well. If your shadow falls on an upper casteman, you pollute them. They have to go home and take a shower and change their clothes. I didn't know it. I'm just walking down the street with my Dalit friends, that I'd met there, and they hopscotching and jumping on. What are y'all doing? They're watching out to make sure their shadow didn't fall. I mean, one night we went to a town hall and had a talk. And when I got there, they had all the women in the back lined up against the walls and their babies and all the men are all sitting in the chairs and sitting up front. And I made them get up and move and put the men up along the wall and let the women who had all their children come and sit. They came and said, "Oh, Venerable, it's going to be very bad for us after you leave this village." Said they're doing it right now, but we're going to get beaten, you know. And I said, I didn't understand. I mean, I just gotten there, right? You know how Americans are. You go somewhere and think you own the country. And so, and he said, because these are upper caste, and um, they're respecting you because you're here, but when you leave, it's going to be bad for us. Then I had to go back and tell, I'm sorry. I said, I didn't realize that I was disrespecting your culture. I said that some things need to change, but they don't have to change tonight. And I did. I profusely apologized because I learned something. That was my first night there. My first night there. I remember I kind of look like them too. Certainly like Sri Lankans. They always think I'm Sri Lankan. But I would go to the fruit stands and pick up a piece of fruit. They'd take it out of my hand, wipe it off, and put it back because they thought I was a Dalit. And I was like, "Oh, I don't have to buy fruit from you." And they didn't care. They were delighted, that I didn't. And so I learned a lot while I was there about how I had to be able to be useful. But I told them, I said, next year or the year after next, we'll start with Dharma. I said, this year we started with toilets. We needed to build toilets. Okay, so the husbands send their wives out to do the digging. They just stayed in and drank, right? Some mostly all day. They send the wives out. So now I had to go get the husbands and make them come out and work. We built this huge well. And the women would be carrying all the rocks on their head, all of them out the window. The husband's at home. So I told the guy who was helping us, I said, you have all their husbands out here at 5:00, 5 p.m. tomorrow. And then I told them, you're going to have to help build the well. And they did. They did after that. So that's a way that I felt that I could help. But now it's by sharing the Dharma at the end of my life. If I'm out there, I got to sit down every 5 minutes now, and rest. I'm not much good helping people. When we had things going on with the flood, I wanted desperately to go, but I'd just be a nuisance. I'd just be in the way. So what I'm saying is we do what we can do. I won't say on whatever level we're on, but within the range of the state that we have, and we need to know what that is. So while it might be perfectly fine for somebody to do something, it would not be the best thing for me to do at this particular time. And that's why you have to know your own conscience. And you have to not judge what other people do. Like if you cared, you'd be doing this. If you care and you think that's what you should do, then that's what you should do. There's plenty of work for everybody to do on some level. So today, I'm finishing up on the 5 fears that a Bodhisattva has, because this is what will keep us from being able to enter into our aspiration of being a Bodhisattva. We have to overcome these 5 fears because they keep us from entering into a certain state of utilization. And I don't mean to know what they are, but I mean that in our cultivating, we have to uproot the mentality and the behaviors that meet the criteria of these 5 fears. I thought about, generally I don't think about a title, somebody else does that. But 2 came up for me. Maybe 3, but 2. One is when I was thinking about this, I felt a pain in my heart, and I was thinking how easily hearts break. Hearts break easily. And then I started thinking about what we have to do to uproot these fears, that we actually have the capacity to manage our tendencies. The first fear is, I'm just going to review the first type of fear. It's called the fear of having no livelihood. That's when living beings need to be taught, guided, and benefited. They need bodhisattvas to expound Dharma to them. Thus, if beginning bodhisattvas want to become bodhisattvas, they must act in accord with the conduct of a bodhisattva. Now, if I'm not a bodhisattva and I want to become a bodhisattva, that means I must act, I must do, not think about or discuss or talk about, but I must actually go against the grain of the mentality of an ordinary being and do what a bodhisattva does. That's the training. So once they enlighten themselves, they must enlighten others. You can only shed as much light to help others as you actually have. So nobody's expected to be a Buddha or high-level bodhisattva, because we know our tendencies. And this fear of having no livelihood is the thinking that when guiding and saving living beings occupies the time that they need to spend engaging in their own business or profession, they fear losing the opportunity to make a living. That could be extended even further to when there is something to be done, but we never have time to help do it. Or when there's a need, we can't see how we could help. Someone asked me one day, and they said, can I take you to lunch? I'd like to take you to lunch. And said, well, I'll just say this because you don't know who it is. she had just talked to me a couple of days earlier, and she said, I'm so excited because I met with my financial planner and I have $1 million in my 401k. She said, I'd like to take you out to lunch. She said, now, I won't pay your mortgage, but I'll treat you to lunch. But I wasn't offended, because that's her mind. That's where her mind is, that happy that she had $1 million. But if we couldn't pay our mortgage that month or our rent, like, I'm not gonna give you that, And so I said, that's all right. I said, I understand. And no, it wasn't. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because we think that we should be the inheritors of this great Dharma, but it costs something. It doesn't cost you having to give me something, but it costs a change in the way you hold what's important to you in life to qualify to have the enlightened view that you have. That's all I'm saying, And if you don't have that, these things are not, if you are miserly, if you're stingy, if you're only concerned about to that extent, then you're not going to understand the Dharma. You're just not going to understand it. You're not going to be able to penetrate to the truth of the Dharma simply because you're not in a state where it's understandable for you. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the Dharma. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means if you can't swim yet, stay in the kiddie pool or stay at the shallow end of the pond. That's all. And so this is why he talks about these things, not because anybody out here needs something, but there's something we need to break open our heart. And there's a certain state that our heart has to be in to be for there to be utilization, for us to be fit for every good work. And so when they go about to share the Dharma with others or to enlighten others with whatever skill they might have, it's not always about the Dharma. It might be some skill you have, some training you have. They said they first consider the fact that they themselves still must eat and live since they have this body, which is a body in the state of nirvana with remaining reliance. So they fear that their time will be occupied. And they can't do the things that they want to do in the world because something's being asked of them, something's being taken from them. For example, they fear taking time out of their work or classes, or even some household chore or daily chore. They can't consider self and other as equal. They consider self before other. That's the state of our ordinary mind. It's a fact, to a greater degree or a lesser degree. So we can't expect to go from just being who we are, how we are, to suddenly living what we say, which is our vow of becoming a bodhisattva for the benefit of all. Those are just words until the mind is cultivated in a way that you're always thinking about others, even not just equal with yourself, but others before yourself. And I'm gonna tell you, if you rush that, it's gonna backfire on you. Because you're gonna find that you can't do it beyond what the heart truly, truly is willing to give. And so no need to try to press to get into certain states of knowing if our conduct can't keep up. So little by little, we work on these things. But I say them so that you will work on them. You will think about them. I could just think of one little thought. I think it was yesterday, or maybe it was the day before yesterday. And Reba, I contacted the foundation to ask to help us with the festival. And they did. They agreed to they gave us $5,500 towards expenses for the festival. And that was wonderful. And I sent the note out. And Reba said, "Oh, and Busita, we owe all this to you," because I certainly was negative about it. And so this is 100% your merit. And right away, my mind said, "Oh, so I, started on my thingy. 25% for Busita. 25% for me, because I asked for the money and I'm thinking about it all the time. 25% for Yeshi and 25% for Santi, because they've been working their butts off, organizing and trying and viewing films and, now that thought was the first thought that popped in my mind. And as soon as it popped in my mind, I caught it. Instead of me rejoicing, because what she was really saying was she was acknowledging that she was negative and, and it was like depressing the spirit of the people who were working on it. And she saw that. And she was happy that, that Busita was changing around it. And that's what she was really expressing, you see. So through my false appearances, I came up immediately, the mind, with something. But when I sat back from it, I thought about that thing for 3 hours. Then I went through my whole checklist of what other thoughts do I have around things like that. Honestly, when I looked up, 3 hours had passed. So we don't really have time to deal with anybody else. I don't, because these seeds are in us and they get watered by something and they sprout up. Now, I thought about it. I deleted my text and I corrected myself. That's what's required again and again and again. The good news is that I don't have to beat myself up over it. And I didn't have to carry on until somebody else had to correct me. And that's the joy of walking this path. You start to know what's really in your mind, in the crevices, in the cracks, in the recesses. And especially if we think we are doing good, if we think we are doing good work. And honestly, I don't knowingly have that kind of mind. I surrender it all. I have for 40 years. So I know what I do, and I know the heart in which I do it, and yet that's there. And who knows how many other kinds of seeds are still there. And just 2 months ago, I said I was ready to die. I better hang around a little longer, because I don't know what destination I might be bound for. Really. He says, ordinary people will think of their own survival. Or in this case, I was thinking of the work we had done. And that's just the ego, right? They will consider their own work, their own so-called future. But actually, this is a type of fear. This fear is a type of obstacle. This type of obstacle is a type of karmic force, a karmic force that will bring about their descent. So I recognized that I had just fallen with that thought. Whatever you think, that's where you are. He says, of course, they have cultivated themselves well. They have already realized the state of a beginning bodhisattva. And that goes without saying. So he says that when you make these stumbles, don't lay there. Recognize it, confess it, change your behavior, and just move on. That's it.
Yeah, that's so true.
That's it. And as we start to understand, really penetrate to the realization of the emptiness behind all phenomena,
What are you doing today?
it becomes easier to not feel beat down when we fall short, or when we have. He said that he never said that these unwholesome thoughts would not invade the mind. He said they would not invade the mind, what? And remain.
That's the 4 efforts. Like,
It will not invade the mind and remain. So thoughts arise, they abide. If we don't attach to them, they depart. That's it. But we do have to acknowledge that they have arisen. We have to make a corrective, determination, and then carry that out, whatever is required. Okay. When practicing giving, they are afraid that it will impact their own livelihood. That's why beginning bodhisattvas must practice giving. This includes giving away their money, giving away their food, and even family assets. There is even the practice of giving fearlessness. There is also unconditional giving and other types of giving. So if one is giving grudgingly, you shouldn't give. If one is giving grudgingly, you should return it. Whenever beginning bodhisattvas think of giving away things, they become afraid. If they do not have a lot of money, they fear they will use up all the money. If they don't have a lot of medicine, they fear that I might need to keep this medicine because I might need it. When giving fearlessness to resolve the suffering of another person, they don't have the time. They may want to save that person, but fear that they will lose too much time, spend too much time with them. Thus, they think over whether they want to do it or not, fearing that it would impact their daily life. Thus, they are unable to give based on what they have. Their intention then cannot go to the fullest extent. This gives rise to attachment and fear from being overcautious and hesitant. On the one hand, not giving makes them feel bad. I wish I could. On the other hand, when they are about to give, they think, I can't give that away. I have to keep a little. I should have acted in accord with Buddha Dharma, but my worldly matters are still more important. Otherwise, I'll be doomed. I'll have nothing to eat. They don't know that this type of fear is a very big mistake. And if they don't overcome it, they will not enter the realization of a bodhisattva at the dry wisdom stage, much less the realization state of a true bodhisattva who has ascended to higher stages.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
In the beginning of that, it says that this level that we're talking about is after enlightenment and after nirvana. So for us, it's an inspiration, but it still occurs after enlightenment.
No,
Because in the beginning, it says after enlightenment.
but there's so many levels of enlightenment. Once you've seen the Dhammakaya, so if you've had a glimpse, even if you can't hold the glimpse, the view of emptiness, if you've had a glimpse of it, you could, by your conduct, be a bodhisattva in the causal or the beginning stage. Or, I mean, you don't know. I mean, we don't even know our own minds yet. Once you get a glimpse of that and see, somebody in here might be a bodhisattva of the first stage or the second stage. I think certainly Pannadipa was a bodhisattva. Maybe a beginning one, but he definitely was one because his actions speak for him, And on one hand, some of us who think we do so much, we think we are bodhisattvas and probably not. And some of us think we are not, but probably are. Just whichever way you're thinking, go the other way. That's what I
Watch
do.
that thirst thought.
That's right. Whatever your first thought is, skip that one. The second fear is fear of bad reputation. Practitioners in the world are may be subject to slander. They fear getting a bad reputation or being implicated in an offense or a crime. This prevents them from dimming their radiance so that they can mingle with the dust. That's what they accuse Jesus of doing. He hangs out with prostitutes and tax collectors. So sometimes someone needs us for a friend, but we can't be seen with them. It's called dimming their radiance, so they can't dim their radiance so that they can mingle with the dust. Thus, they generate the obstacle that is fear of a bad reputation. There are beginning bodhisattvas who have surpassed the state of realization of arhats. Of course, among living beings, there are also beginning bodhisattvas. Among living beings, there are also beginning bodhisattvas. And although they have not realized arhatship, they take the approach of directly learning the ways of a bodhisattva. Bodhisattva is as bodhisattva does. In the process of learning Buddha Dharma, it's hard for you to avoid being smeared to some extent or having your reputation slandered to some extent. Or in worldly matters, other people may distort facts and play tricks on you. This is because demons are fundamentally opposed to bodhisattvas and Buddhas. And when they incarnate into this earthly world, their job is to do great damage to holy people and the true Dharma. So there could be a being that in last incarnation was in a hell realm or hungry ghost realm, or in a solar realm. And in this incarnation, they're in the human realm. And in the consciousness, there are seeds that are unwatered. If they get watered, then they're going to produce after their own kind. So we shouldn't have a Pollyanna idea that everybody in the world is good. Of course, if we don't believe in rebirth linking consciousness, then that's another whole issue that I'm not talking about right now. But if we do, then we have to know that they weren't necessarily a human in previous life, but they could have been in any one of the realms within samsara. Is anybody confused about this? If they came from an asura realm or even a deva realm, because they're used to a certain kind of environment, the beauty, just the pleasures of being in a deva realm. Getting here, they may, what do you think would be their predominant propensity?
Searching for it.
Pleasure.
And greed, because they're used to certain things. And when they see something, then it waters a seed and it brings about a grasping and a craving for that.
Even though they got to the Deva realm by,
Was still within samsara.
so they're still under the causes and conditions.
Mm-hmm. Still in samsara. So most of our problems have nothing to do with our mothers and our fathers. Some of it does, maybe, But he said, long time we've been on this journey. How long? Since beginningless time. It wasn't like we were Buddhas and we forgot. We lost our memory and we fell. If that was the case, how's there any guarantee that when we get back to being Buddhas that we won't forget again? He said, it's just like if you could think of our original nature being like the sky. And they're the clouds. And the clouds can be like both obstacle and clouds can be like the manifested presence now. And we look at the cloud and think that's me, but the cloud's not us, the sky is. And that's an image that I use all the time, just to become more familiar within penetrating to the truth of emptiness. That I'm like the sky, my original nature, not the cloud that's superimposed. I'm like the sky. And it kind of gives me an understanding of the vastness. And I cling a little bit less, or at least when I do cling, I recognize what? I'm clinging. I recognize I'm clinging out. And just having the image, like that's why the teachers use allegories, they use examples, they use stories, because that will help the mind picture something better than trying to use a lot of, words or intellectual words. It's like this, it's like that. Just take, for example, when they expound the sutras or lecture on the Dharma or explain prajna, even though they wear the robes of a great Dharma king or even a patriarch, because they have not realized Buddha nature, as soon as they start to expound the Dharma, all they say is nonsense, totally devoid of the principles of the Dharma. In particular, their explanations of the truth of prajna are even more awful. And all they do is excerpt passages from commentaries of some other patriarchs to fill up the content of their lectures. Moreover, the passages that they excerpt are irrelevant. And you would not understand what they say, even if you listened 100 times. And this is because they are unable to explain or discuss the absolute truth of prajna. However, even if one previously was demonic, once he realizes the fruits of prajna and is able to explain the correct principle, he's no longer a demon. He will have thoroughly shed what constitutes being a demonic person without the slightest trace remaining. Once we understand and comprehend, that's why he constantly says, you have to know your own conscience. You have to know what you think, what you hold to be true. In order to damage the wisdom roots of living beings, demonic people slander the true Dharma with the goal of harming holy ones and assisting evil ones. Now I want to talk for a minute about that. How we can have more peace and contentment, even while we're going through a tough time, because it might get even tougher. And I'm not the gloom and doom wagon, but I want to just say a way that you can. I made some notes last night. Someone who has a very a personality whose tendencies are to deny whatever they do wrong, to accuse you of doing that instead, of creating the problem. And who reverses things to make the victim the offender, and the offender the victim has certain kinds of behaviors. Part of it is narcissism. That's like, look at me. It's all about me. Everything's all about me. The other is Machiavellian tendencies. I'm willing to hurt you to get what I want. And the other is psychopathy, which is I feel no empathy and I have no remorse when I do hurt you. Now, there's not going to be a lot you're going to be able to do with a person who thinks like that. Right? Some of this has to do maybe with the gray matter in their head, but you're not going to be able to do a lot about it. So it's no point in me feeling like, well, this is about my rights and what I want, because to some degree, that's our narcissism compared to a bodhisattva. Right? That bodhisattva, that's our ideal. And you see where we are, and you can see where some people are. So it's all relative. But I'm willing to hurt you to get what I want. And we do that even with people that we love. We hurt them. We hurt them because it's more important to be right, than to reason with them or even try to look at their side of it, or even sometimes willing to accept the blame and give the victory to another. So we do that. Sometimes we feel no or very little empathy or remorse when we hurt someone. And these are people we say we love. I had a phone call today, and so my feet are burning. And I looked on my phone and it was Jay. I said, but it could have been that my ex-husband. It could have been, something urgent. Right away, I said, Jay only calls when he needs something, like he's working on he's got a new something and he wants to sell me one of them, or I'm not answering that phone. But that didn't have to be the truth, That's just what's in my mind. But these things are there. We think they're not there until something comes up and happens, and then maybe we don't even think about it. But he says that we need to think, because we have these patterns, unconscious patterns, that we need to root up. Sometimes somebody will text me and say, would you pray for me? And I say, I will. I'll do it tonight. And it's 8 o'clock and I'm like, I'll do it tomorrow. But if I say I'll do it tonight, then I should do it tonight. Something as simple as that. It says, at this point, perhaps you disciples are frightened. Saying is, why should I even continue to learn the Dharma? But he said, you should be clear about something. If you have truly aroused bodhicitta, if you truly perform deeds for the benefit of living beings, and you have a selfless state of mind, then you will not die. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions will empower you. But you should first be unafraid. You should be selfless. You should liberate living beings. What you should not do when following the path of Buddhism is consider your own interests first, putting yourself before all others. You should not regard matters that will better the lives of living beings as a low priority, because such matters are unrelated to your own interests, or even worse, not take up such matters, not put them on your agenda to implement for living beings. If you're not going to do it, just say it, can't do it. You cannot expound the Dharma with such a mentality. That is the state of mind of an ordinary person in which selfishness arises from attachment to self. Instead, you must cultivate a sincere and selfless state of mind. This is the kind of mentality that you should have. If you have selfish thoughts and considerations, if you harm the interests, the lives, the property of living beings, if you are egoistic, then of course you are not a beginning bodhisattva. Rather, you're just simply a bad person based on worldly standards. What I'm referring to here are beginning bodhisattvas. Beginning bodhisattvas have cut off self-attachment and have a selfless state of mind. So we can know when we have a selfless state of mind, and we know when we're selfish. You should pay attention to that. You can just watch your tendencies. Sometimes you really do have a selfless state of mind, but you have a habitual tendency. And you know which one it is. And that's not a brag, it's just a fact, you know. So when you do something that doesn't, line up with how you know you are, he said, pay attention to that thing and just make a little shift. Just make a little shift. You don't have to go across the whole canyon, just make a slight shift, one that you can accommodate, that allows you to gradually bring your habits in line with your mind, with your thinking. And so little by little will change. The fourth is the fear of descending into one of the bad or lower realms. In the course of continual practice, they fear descending into a bad realm within samsara. Based on their notion of dharmas that are not good, they give rise to differentiation in their treatment of the dharmas. They wish not to be born in an evil realm. The fear of descending into one of the evil or lower realms is a hindrance based on being attached to differentiation between good and evil. Whoa. We have a lot of thoughts around good and evil. And it can get scary to you, like for about, 3 or 4 months now. I've just been challenged around what I call evil and what I call good. I mean, and first you have to know, don't touch the fire, it's hot, it'll burn, right? You know, but if I'm attached to good and evil, then when I see people do certain things, then, you know, we say, well, it's not like the people are evil, it's just, we just don't like the thing that they do. But really what we're saying is the person is evil. And we just find a better way to express it so that we sound like holy people. You know? And you have to really penetrate to really see that differentiation and that how it's all on a relative spectrum until actually you can see the good in the evil and the evil in the good. For instance, I don't disagree right now with some things and some corrections we need to make in this country. I don't disagree. I disagree with the methods. I disagree with the how they're going about doing it with a careless and a cold heart. I don't have as much respect for rule of law as I should, but I do recognize that we have an agreement as a society, you know, and whether we like it or don't like it, this is what we have agreed upon. And if we want to change it, we have put in place provisions of how we go about changing it. And things can't just be at the whim of one person, you know. And that's what I would like to see. So when I think about the young man was deported to the prison, to me, it doesn't matter whether he was a gang member or not. What matters to me is there are procedures, judicial procedures that should be followed. We all agreed to follow them, and no one person is excluded from that, you know. So I don't want to talk about whether he's a gangbang or not. If they said that, if they didn't provide the proofs and the judge said don't take him out, then if you don't like what the judge says, then take it, follow the procedures that we have established as a society, as a country, or how we will handle these kinds of disputes. That's the most important thing. Now, does that mean that I don't care about his life? No, I do care about his life. So on one hand, everything is so complicated and interwoven and tied up that if I don't remain focused, and I'll get bogged down in feelings around, you know, that man and his wife, and think about what if my husband was taken from me, or what if, you know, and we start focusing in a way that takes away our effort and our strength from where we need to stand firm, because we get all personal with it, and it doesn't have to be that way. So I know that I'm not going to be any good to anybody if I can't stay clear-headed, if I can't stay level-headed, if I'm not willing to talk with people. The other day, Bill said to us, he said, "Oh, that Trump, he's something else, isn't he?" He said, "Yeah, he's doing a lot for our country." I said, "I'm not gonna have that conversation with you today." And I just didn't want to have it, period. But what did he say? Did anybody hear what he said at that table?
I thought he said, okay.
He said, he asked this one, "You don't think he's good? You don't think he's good? You don't think he's good?" He said, "Okay, well then I'll just sit here and listen." He said, "Why? What's wrong with him?" And that's when I said, "I can't have that conversation with you today." No, but I'm gonna have it with him. But I'm gonna do it in a way and in accordance with, he's challenged. And I'm gonna do it in a way that's in accordance with his mind. To have that discussion with him. And I didn't want to bother him because I didn't want to waste my time. But he asked, he said, "Oh, well, what's wrong with him?" And then he said, "Everybody disagree?" "Oh, well, I'll just sit here and listen." But nobody said anything. There was an opportunity. But to tell you the truth, I was a little just ticked off about the whole thing. So I wasn't in a state of mind that I could just share with him in a way that he could understand what the concern was, because I would be too out of control. I mean, you got to be blind and deaf, and and that's not the right way to think about it. So I've been, for the last few days, really getting my thoughts together for how to speak to him in a way that if he has wrong information, or I shouldn't even say wrong information, just present my view of what's going on, and that's it. He used to wear his MAGA hat. You see the hat, he doesn't wear the MAGA hat anymore. I never once told him he couldn't wear it in the rotation. I don't know if somebody else did, but I didn't, I let him wear it. And he bring his other, things that was fine with me. And so if we can bring our own temperature down, we'll be able to be useful. Yeah. That was the fourth one, right? Fear.
I remember number 3.
Oh,
Yeah.
label number 3.
Number 3,
There are denominations.
the second was the fear. The third,
ones.
oh, sorry. The third one's the fear of death.
Skip that.
Sentient beings who have aroused bodhicitta should, based on the karmic condition of bodhicitta, be willing to lay down their lives for the sake of the Dharma and spare no toil for the sake of Buddha Dharma. Saving living beings, expounding the Dharma to living beings, guiding living beings to embark on the correct path, and guiding living beings on how to be a truly good person and end the cycle of birth and death. These are the tasks of Bodhisattva, because this is what Buddhism is. Teaches us how to be a good person and how to end the cycle of birth and death. To do that, we have to cut off self-attachment. Are we able to give up our own lives? When I was called to the ministry, first called to the ministry as a Christian, I was asked that question. A voice spoke to me and asked me, was I willing to die for friend. I said, sure, I think so. He said, dying is easy. Could you live for one? And I couldn't answer. And he said, that's the question. Because it requires something of us. That's all I gotta say about that. You can just ask yourself that question every day. I ask myself that question every day. I've told you many times that when I leave here, I want to leave in a condition that I don't have to come back anymore, period. But lately, I've been thinking, it's going to be due to causes and conditions, right? Karmic factors. But I've just been thinking, if I had to come back, I wouldn't mind. My preference would be not to, but now I'm not so attached to that. I'm gonna tell you that's big for me. Because I'm like, I'm done with this. But there's only one way that I would not, and that is that I meet the conditions for rebirth in another realm, right? So I'm wishing and hoping and praying. But now my mind is, I wouldn't mind going through some suffering again. But if I did, I want it to be on behalf of others and not because I'm still trying to dig myself out of a hole. That was number 3. The 4th is the fear of descending to one of the bad or lower realms. I think that is a fear that I have held. That one right there. Not afraid to die. I've dealt with that one. But that one, the fear of descending into one of the bad or lower realms, including this one. And he said one of the reasons is their notion that dharmas are not good, that they give rise to differentiation in their treatment of dharma. So it's like, this is a high dharma, that's a low dharma. I don't want the Kuan Yin. I want, give me Savanipparana Vishkabim, practice. I don't want to do the prostrations and the water bowl offerings, and I don't want, so we think this a particular dharma is, even though we talk about the highest and the best, we want for ourselves the high, lofty ones, the ones we can't understand, can't penetrate, and don't have the behaviors that allow us to even understand them, much less there be any attainment and utilization. But we want those, but we don't want these little dharmas. But he said not to have any differentiation. So whatever one you have, penetrate it. Whatever you've taken up, do that. Just do that one faithfully. Do that one with your whole heart. And it has just as much power as what we might consider a high dharma. Said there's going shallow and there's going deep. Said the important thing is to just go deep. Don't differentiate the dharmas. He says, among us here, there are bodhisattvas. Some are at the state of realization of a beginning bodhisattva. And there's some at the state of realization of a bodhisattva with excellent learning. Additionally, among us here are the type of disciples who are trying to enter the state of a beginning bodhisattva, who are trying to enter the state of a first stage bodhisattva. At this point, I want earnestly to tell all of you something. I am talking to you. My words are addressed to you. To those several of you who are sitting here, for those who are sitting here, and what I'm about to say will affect living beings for a number of years in the future. And I'm at the end, last paragraph of this teaching. In the course of your continual practice, you have learned many Buddha Dhammas out of fear that you will not break away from samsara, that you will not end the cycle of birth and death. Although it is true that you have learned these Buddha Dhammas based on your notion of Dhammas that are not good, you give rise to differentiation in your treatment of the Dhammas. Having already learned so many Dhammas, why are you all day long still again and again saying, Master, teach me a Dhamma, Master, teach me a Dhamma, Master, teach me a Dhamma. I then teach you another Dhamma out of compassion. And within 2 years of that, I ask you whether you're practicing the Dhamma that I taught you. The reply is, I forgot that Dhamma. Master, teach me one more, teach me one more. Such people do not know what in the world they're doing all day long. This is extremely terrible. It's simply extremely terrible. Of course, some of you have a certain degree of cultivated power and hold on to one or two things that you know. You have a mind of differentiation towards Buddha Dhamma. You think, this time the Master taught Dhamma to me through an initiation. There was no initiation that other time. Or this time the Master imparted to me Chan principles, but such principles are not right for me. I want to learn esoteric Dharma. Another will say, esoteric Dharma, that's not right for me. I want to learn Pure Land. All day long, they differentiate these various Dharmas, wondering which of those Dharmas are authentic and which are not. They even ask each other, how good is that Dharma that you've learned? How good is this Dharma that I learned? They're constantly thinking about finding a very good opportunity to learn a Dharma that's perfect. Therefore, based on their notion of Dharmas that are not good, they give rise to differentiation in their treatment of Dharmas. And this is a very serious problem. There are some disciples who are truly baffling. They see some hand technique that they're not clear about, yet they give it a label, calling it a such and such Vajra or such and such Dharma. After they hear other people talking, they come and ask me about what they heard. And they say, oh, transmit this Dharma to me, or transmit that Dharma. They are truly immature to an extreme degree. I perhaps should not have spoken to you today with this type of attitude. No matter what Dharma you learn, the key is whether or not you are sincere and whether or not you practice in accord with the teachings. If not, no matter how many Dharmas I teach you, your 3 karmas of thought, speech, and action will not correspond. And if you learn even one Dharma, you'll do damage to that one. If you learn 2, you'll do damage to those 2. And in the end, you'll be unable to experience any beneficial effects. And I think that I want to stop right there. He says, I tell all of you disciples that such thoughts are your biggest mistakes. it is also a matter of incorrectly analyzing worldly matters. And that is also a kind of immature behavior. So I'd like to ask you to just think about, this was a very serious talk today. Because we're happy when we learn something that we feel is good and advances us. But we're not so happy when we have to think about things where we have to correct our behavior. But I tell you, after a while, the joy comes in correcting your behavior. And I'm happy for the training that I had before I got here, you know, because, you know, some of us read different parts of the Bible, but I went for the hard things in there. And in one passage, it said that whom the Lord loveth, he corrected, you know. And he said that if you couldn't tolerate the correction, he considered you a bastard and none of his. Because who he loves, he corrects. And so cultivating that mind, that correction is a good thing. It's a stabilizer. It's the guardrails that allow us to be able to just enter into our good wishes, that we don't have to worry or wonder, you know, about getting lost on the path or vectoring off, because the Dharma continually sets some guardrails for you to remain safe and on the path and on the road. It's only when we take offense in them, you know, that we can wander off into the forest and lose our way. So when we hear things that's difficult for us to accept or even to understand, we just simply say, I don't understand this. You know, I would like to understand how to have that kind of mind, you know, that operates in that kind of way. I want to think about others more than myself. I want to be selfless in my giving. I want to be willing to die for another. I want to, you know, that's my aspiration. You know, I might not meet all of that criteria right now, but I keep that aspiration in front of me, and it guides me in my, I won't even say in my conduct, it guides me in my self-correction. I'm on the self-correction path right now, you know, but I'm happy to be on it. You know, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's harsh. I don't think it's hard. I don't think I know, you know. And so I'm trying this, committed because of what I have experienced and the rejoicing it has brought me in my life. So it's not just thinking of things, but I look at my life and I'm happy. I'm happy with my life. I once was young and now I'm old, you know, and I can make a determination about how I have lived my life. And I'm satisfied with my life. I haven't done the best that I could do, but I can look at what I've done and I'm satisfied with that. And what I didn't know that I'm learning now, however much time I have left, I will put towards, you know, towards perfecting that. And maybe I'll make it, and maybe I won't. But I have a guidepost. I have a light in front of my path. So I'm not all over the place. I'm not, and I'm dying without regrets. You know, I wish I had done better. I could have done better, but I'm talking about the deep regret. And when you come to the end of your life and know that this is it, that one I'm free from. Now, pain, that's another thing. I'm working on pain. I have an issue with pain. I don't have an issue with dying. I got an issue with pain. And I'm trying to penetrate that now. so that I can tolerate pain. I mean, if I have to. I'm glad I'm born in at this time because I can take medicines for it or something, But, so go to the places that scare you is what I'm saying to you today. Not to be afraid to go to the places that scare you. Where you're doing good, leave that. Where you need to improve, run to that. That will be your refuge. And that'll also give you great joy and satisfaction in this life. Now, 5 fears, that's all you gotta overcome. To be a bodhisattva.
What's the fifth one?
Fear of practicing.
What's the 5th one?
Was it fear of practicing inferior dharma?
No, fear of going to,
That was the fourth
That was the
one.
fourth.
Like you're going in front of an assembly with like accomplishment.
first is livelihood, second is giving,
Reputation. Bad
reputation, third is giving, fourth was
Yeah.
I thought
Death.
third
Third
was
was
death.
death.
Fear of death.
Third is fear of death.
death, is the third. Fourth
Fear of
was
descending.
fear of,
Lower.
Descending.
no,
There is
That's what-
reputation. Is there 6?
That was
Yeah.
the assumption.
the reputation was second.
Oh, there you go.
So start again, the first was livelihood, the second was
Bad
reputation, the third,
Yeah.
Get-
death, the fourth,
Descending.
Descending.
Lower realm.
uh,
A livelihood is a part of giving.
no,
Livelihood and
giving
are-
was separate.
Then that came before death. We talked.
No,
about
the
before
third
death.
was death.
Okay.
Mhm. All right,
Fear of giving is.
last, here we go, because I don't want to have to try to find that section again. The first was livelihood, the second,
Reputation.
reputation, the third was death,
Yeah.
the fourth,
Descending.
oh, well, giving,
Fourth is giving.
fourth is giving. Mm-hmm,
So fear of giving everything.
fear of giving.
Mhm.
Time,
Oh,
your effort,
okay.
don't think in terms of money, because it's really not about money. And that's where our mind goes whenever we talk about giving.
That was 4?
That's 4.
And so folded into 4 was fear of descending into a lower realm.
No,
that's
that's 5.
Oh, that's 5. Okay.
Got all 5?
Yeah.
And now we got that.
Okay. Okay, last go round. First is livelihood, reputation, death, giving,
Descending.
and when you can get some assurance, inner insurance, based on your own conscience and examining your life and your attitude and your behaviors, you can see like the fears start to leave, depending on where you are, the fears start to leave. And when they don't leave completely, to help you not tremble in fear, there is the whole teaching of the emptiness behind all phenomena. So on one hand, he's working on changing behaviors. On the other hand, he's having you see through the illusory appearances caused by the aggregates. What he said was that when we begin to sincerely walk this path with heart, and we start to see the nature of emptiness through the development of bodhicitta in our life, that the aggregates, they won't rise up, because that false appearance is starting to dissolve from your view. It just starts to leave, and it doesn't matter whether we're egotistical or whether we have low self-esteem. Neither one of those will have a place at the table, If we have either one of those, we're like really deeply into self. But as we start to work on these behaviors, then it uproots the mind that thinks in these ways. We're trying to uproot the mind and change the thoughts. But he said the easier way is to just start changing your behaviors and your mind will change. Yeah. Could somebody close on?
We dedicate the merit generated
There.
from our study today to all living beings. We actually have the ability to change our habits, our tendencies, our habitual tendencies. With this as our aspiration, may this merit also accrue to all living beings through our service.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.